When I hear about a live service game or a looter shooter, I don't usually have any expectations of a good game, since there have been too many times where we have a title that is getting all hyped only for it to deliver a mediocre experience. This has pretty much conditioned me to be skeptical whenever I hear the words live service, hero shooter or looter shooter. So when I first found out about Warframe in late 2023, I was just going to scroll past it, but the concept was interesting enough that convinced me to at least look it up on YouTube. And I just have to admit that I was very intrigued after looking at the trailer. I also saw a few videos here and there, and they all showed a character in a futuristic suit of armor that was running, jumping, and flying around at incredible speeds while shooting or hitting enemies with some cool looking weapons. So I decided to just give it a try. After all, it's a free game, and if it's bad I can just drop it with no strings attached, so I had nothing to lose. I was still skeptical though, since there have been many times when a game has stunning trailers and visuals, only for the gameplay to turn out to be something completely different. So you can imagine how surprised I was after seeing that Warframe's gameplay wasn't too different from what the trailers promoted. My second biggest surprise though was the movement mechanics and weapon systems, since I had never seen anything similar in the game. Being able to run on walls, dash at high speeds, climb buildings like they were nothing, and easily glide through the air gave me a level of freedom no other game has ever done before. Also, most games tend to limit the weapons you can use based on things like classes or stats, but Digital Extremes, the company behind Warframe, did the exact opposite and gave players the freedom to combine any weapons to build loadouts that better fit their playstyle and preference. You can play as a cyborg ninja, a hulking tank, a speedster or a space wizard, and use any kind of weapons that you want. There are also these things called Warframes, which are the suits of armor that work as the character you control, and each of them work different from the other. They all have different passives and active abilities, and some are better than others for specific things like stealth, damage, defense, and support. All weapons and frames are also customizable. You can give them mods to increase their damage, health, shields, energy, reload speeds, critical damage, or even add elemental damage to your attacks. They give the player so much variety in customization that I can play the game any way I want. Not only that, but they also managed to add a bunch of other things like pets, base customization, clan creation, boss fights, open worlds, spaceship fights, and mechs. I am yet to find another game that offers this level of depth and player freedom in a way that makes sense and doesn't feel bloated, or at least one that I like. However, Warframe has other 5 things that are what keep me coming back. First is its story. This is probably a surprise since the story tends to take a backseat in these kinds of games, and it doesn't usually have an impact on the player experience, but in Warframe the story is the one element that drives the game forward. Besides introducing you to most game mechanics, you also get to learn about the world, its factions and characters in a way that feels organic and it's not forced. But most importantly, you get to see the passion and care that was put behind this game. The story is good, the characters are memorable, there are various emotional moments, and you get exposed to the different perspectives of some characters in the enemy factions, making them feel like people instead of just some mindless mobs. The story in Warframe has a soul, and you can feel it when you play it, especially when you reach the Second Dream or the New War, which are where the story takes a narrative that drives you to emotionally care for the world around you. The second one would be its monetization. It's always nice to see a game that has a player-friendly monetization model, and while I admit that some players do not like it, I personally do not have a problem with it, and I will tell you why in a moment. Before that, you must know that Warframe's monetization model has 3 main layers. The first one is, well, as you would expect, an in-game store. In here you can find a bunch of cool cosmetics, mostly Warframe, weapon, vehicle, and the pet skins. There's also emotes, decorations for your home base, and in-game resources. I know that having in-game resources in the store tends to be seen as a bad thing, but let me reassure you that you do not need to purchase them at all, because 99% of the resources are available in-game, and you can get them by simply playing a few missions. That's where the grind comes in, but it's not as bad as in other games, and I will explain why in a second. The second layer would be that it has 3 main in-game currencies, which are credits, platinum, and regal aya. You can find credits in abundance in missions, and the other 2 can only be purchased. Credits are the most useful currency because you can use them to buy blueprints of weapons and warframes in the in-game store, as well as use it in other stuff as well. Platinum will get you cosmetics, bundles, and complete weapons and warframes instead of a blueprint from the store. And Regal Aya will let you buy prime weapons, mods, and warframes, which are a better version of the regular one. Now, I understand that sounds like pay to win, but let me reassure you, do not worry, you can get them for absolutely free in-game. I will explain how in a moment. Now, the third and last layer that the monetization has, which is not exactly a way for digital extremes to make money, but it does play an important role, and that is that there is player trading, which means that players can trade things like items, weapons, prime parts, and resources. However, the most important thing is that they can trade platinum. Warframe has a whole economy going on where players can trade almost everything, and the fact that you can trade even one of the paid currencies is huge, because this means that there is a way for players to earn platinum for free. I know that there are other games that allow you to trade between players, but I haven't heard of one that lets you trade a paid currency, so it blew my mind when I found out about this. If you know about other games that let you do this, please let me know. I would like to check them out. The third thing that I like the most about Warframe is its community. Ever since I started playing Warframe live on stream, I've been often visited by other players offering advice, sending me gifts, or they even hop in to play with me for a bit. They would also drop bits of quote-unquote lore about the developers and the game's history. For example, I didn't know that Warframe was supposed to be a sequel to another game called Dark Sector, or that it was launched more than 10 years ago, and that it used to be completely different from what it is today. However, the moments that stood out the most to me were those where other players would invite me to their clans or orbiters and show me around to see how they decorated their bases or customized the looks of their warframes. All this made Warframe much more fun for me, since I learned a few things that I wouldn't have found out otherwise, and I got to see a side of the gaming community that I never experienced. I say this because the only multiplayer experience I got until that point was the kind that you get from Call of Duty lobbies, and it is not exactly the most positive one. So just seeing random strangers welcoming me into the game was a nice surprise. The next thing that I like the most about this game is its grind, which might sound strange since one of the main drawbacks from looter shooters is that the grind tends to be boring, repetitive, and insufferable. But with Warframe, I don't usually have many issues. I admit I don't always get what I want or need, but most of the time I do. And the login rewards usually have either a resource drop booster or a rare resource that make the grind easier. But that is not all. As previously mentioned, prime weapons, mods, and warframes are a better version of their regular counterpart. However, they are also one of the main driving forces of Warframe's trading market, and you can get them for free. The way this works is that you first need to get relics, which you find in abundance by doing regular missions, and then opening them by doing void fissure missions. After said missions, the relic will crack and give you access to different prime parts or blueprints that you can choose from. Not only that, but if you do the void fissures with other players, and they pick other relics with different rewards to yours, you can then select the reward the relic dropped if you want to. And if you do it with friends and you all pick the same relic, that will increase your chances of getting the prime parts that you want. And even if you get duplicates, you can either scrap them to get ducats, which is another currency that you can exchange for resources, or you can sell the duplicates in the market for platinum. So your effort farming them is never really wasted. Now, the fifth and last thing that keeps me coming back to Warframe is its developers. And I believe this is the most important element that Warframe has because it is rare to find the developers like those behind the Digital Extremes. These are developers who listen. When Warframe first launched in 2013, it came to a market that was already skeptical of free-to-play games, and since Warframe was Digital Extremes' first free live service game, they kept getting rejected by publishers. This forced them to self-publish and cover all the costs themselves, and without any support at the time, they made many of the same mistakes other similar titles did and pretty much made Warframe pay to win. As you would expect, players criticized this, and do you know what Digital Extremes did? They didn't attack their players or tell them that they were disconnected from the realities of game development. Instead, they took the criticism seriously and improved their game. Things that were previously only obtainable with microtransactions are now available in various free game mechanics. One of these is the Nightwave, which is a free battle pass that rewards you with weapons and Warframe slots, skins, blueprints, and other hard-to-get resources, some that were even previously paid, in exchange for completing simple challenges. Not only that, but Digital Extremes is also actively acting in the player's best interest. A clear example of this is when they removed a monetization mechanic because one player used it too many times. This happened because they launched something similar to a gacha mechanic, where players would pull for the fur pattern of their Kubro, which is an in-game pet, for 67 cents. When they launched it, a player soon spent over $100. While other companies would have seen this as a success and would have kept it, Digital Extremes decided to remove it entirely because they realized that they had introduced gambling into their game, and I respect them for that. Another thing they do that other companies do not is that they actively engage with their community. For the most part, companies tend to only do a few posts here and there about a big update or something they're working on for the sole purpose of building hype. On the other hand, Digital Extremes does weekly community streams where they interact with players by making announcements, answering questions, asking for feedback regarding an update, or they just joke around and spend time with the community. And they are not just some random employees either. The CEO, creative director, and ex-community manager are some of the people who are constantly showing up in these streams. In other words, players regularly interact with the people at the top. Again, I have not seen another gaming company do this. Now, it might look like I am glazing Digital Extremes with compliments, but the reality is that when you treat your players and your community with respect and you show that you care, they will want to support you. This is why in my last video about Marvel Rivals I mentioned the importance of building goodwill, because when you do, this happens and their numbers show. Now, the numbers might not look as impressive as other booming titles like Marvel Rivals, but if you look at the chart, you will see that they have kept a healthy and consistent player base from the beginning. This is a normal, healthy chart. Now, if you compare that to another recent looter shooter, I'm sure you can see the difference. Warframe is without a doubt special, and I am glad I started playing it a year ago. But, as much as I love it, it does have its flaws, and so far there are 3 things that I believe are worth mentioning. The first one is that the building and crafting times of weapons and warframes can sometimes take up to 3 days, and can only be rushed if you use platinum, which it's a bit annoying, not gonna lie. The second one is that when you start playing the game for the first time, you will only have 2 slots for warframes and weapons. You can later get more as a reward by doing the story, the night wave are increasing your rank, so it's only an issue at the beginning, but again, it is a bit annoying. And the third one is that it can be very overwhelming at times, because there's so much to do, and sometimes you're left wondering what to do next, which I think it is expected when you're playing a game that has 10 years worth of content. Warframe does have a bit of an issue on how to introduce new players to all the mechanics it has. So far, these are the only issues I have had with Warframe, but in my opinion, they can easily be fixed by just playing the game more casually. Because this is not a game you can rush. If you want to give this game a try, just remember to take your time, enjoy it, invite other friends to play together if you can, and play other games as well, so you have something to do as you wait for those crafting times. That's why I recently have been playing Warframe, Marvel Rivals and Path of Exile 2, and I've been enjoying my time with all three of them. Do that and I promise you, you will enjoy this game too without spending a dime. Warframe is a game that showed me the quality that free live service looter shooters can reach when the developers care about their players. That is why it baffles me whenever I see developers and publishers pulling some shameless tactics to make more money while sacrificing their reputation in the process. Either that or they just start drama on Twitter to get back to those quote-unquote toxic gamers. It just makes me wonder if whatever satisfaction they feel from it is even worth all that. Then I go back to play Warframe and it becomes clear to me once again that no, it wasn't. Not even close. See you later, bros.